versus free shipping plus shipping. It almost is Mortal Kombat, really, between these two. So I've just taken the liberty of putting this little tab together in my spreadsheet just for my own benefit, and I thought I'd share it with you. It's kind of down and dirty. I'll probably have to go through it again and just make sure that everything is calculating properly. I've gone through it. I spent most of the day working on this yesterday, so you're getting it here first blush this morning in my new haggard look. It's stylish these days. But here's some things that I found out. I guess one, I was a little curious about if I get an offer, how do I know how much it's going to cost me to ship it, so then therefore I can determine whether or not I should take the offer, particularly if I'm offering free shipping. Now, what I noted in listing some things the other day, I listed, I don't know, 4 or 5 things yesterday, but in the phone, you do get this little listing summary. So when you take a photo or your photos, you can go through this summary here and you can tweak some things. Now, I have typically just kind of breezed through this because I just want to go to the bottom and hit save for later, so then I can come back to my PC and edit the draft listing. But what I noted here is there's information that shows up on the phone in the listing summary that I haven't been able to find in the desktop environment. Now, it may be there. That's not to say that it isn't. I'm just nearing that age where, I'm either not paying attention or, not as sharp as the tack once was. But right here, you pay $6.33 to $11.15. So I can only assume that that means it's calculated shipping based on my location to anywhere USA. Now, if that's true, this information here is not the item in question. Now, so the video has 2 points. Is like, okay, setting the list price is crucial, particularly if you're going to offer free shipping. And then it becomes a question of whether or not that's actually the better way to do it versus setting the price and offering the buyer to pay for their own shipping, right? So price plus shipping. So on the Pickapalooza, this was the dilemma. I listed it for $23.95. I received an offer for $20, and I was excited about it. It was my second item that I had listed on eBay. But so when we go into order details, I kind of figured out where to do that. I could view purchase item, and right, so I could see the item here and go, okay, well, that's all well and good. Where are the fees? Right, I wanted to see a breakdown of the fees. So I went to see order details, and I was brought here. And lo and behold, here are the fees that show up. Now, one thing stuck out in my mind when I was doing this spreadsheet. So let's go back over here real quick. So I've got my tax set at 7% to come up with the $1.40. And this is calculating off of the $20 price, sale price of the item that also included shipping, right? So I am getting taxed on my shipping here because I'm including the price for shipping in my price overall. But the glaring issue is this. So this 7%, if we come back over here, we go over to the North Dakota state sales tax website. The North Dakota sales tax rate is 5% for most retail sales. And I know this because I have a sales and use tax permit. So I shrink wrap, and the material that I use, I have to charge state, county, and any city sales tax if they are applicable in any of the locations that I install my material. Now, if that's going on to some other customer, then there's a possibility that they are exempt from the sales tax on that, because they're simply then going to carry it on to their customer. And so they'll charge the sales tax accordingly. Ask your accountant. Now, the fact is, it's 5%, except for alcohol, farm machinery, and mobile homes, right? So it's pretty straightforward here in North Dakota. We're pretty simple folk. Now, if we come back over here and we see that this $1.40 in sales tax is from this 20, I'm assuming that it doesn't detail that. So that's a bit concerning. I can't see what the fees are. I can look at the more detail, but that doesn't do anything for me, right? It just shows me what I paid for the labels, and then the $20, and then the fees, right? And so even if I go here to view, I see $18.17 net proceeds, and I see the fees at $183. But I don't see any kind of breakdown. Final value fee, variable percentage, musical instruments and gear category. So I see that my category fee is 6.7%, so $1.43. And then I suppose the additional amount is my 2%. So let's now go back over here to the spreadsheet. So I'm at 2% here, and I'm at 6.5% here. So 6.7. So I can adjust this. Let's just we'll go 0.67. And it changes, some of the numbers change, but okay, the 2%. So let's just look at the spreadsheet now. I'm going to pull this up here real quick. So again, getting back to the shipping. So the 7% to get the 140 from 20 is not the state sales tax in North Dakota. So I'm curious where the 7% is coming from to get my 140. Because that's what it showed, back yonder. Now, it should be 5. Now, unless it's including the city sales tax. So let's go back here. We may as well do it real quick. So I can do a lookup. 3581. So we'll search 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's 3% for the Wahpeton sales tax. So I'm kind of curious where this number is coming from. If it were 2%, then I might say, well, okay, it is calculating out the Wahpeton city sales tax there as well, but it's an 8%. So I'm a little befuddled, and I don't find a breakout of the taxes. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm not concerned per se. They're the ones that have to, account for it, not me, unless there's somehow that I could be made liable, not liable, liable for the inaccuracy in the tax gathering and remitting. Okay? So, all that aside now, let us get down to the nitty-gritty of free shipping versus plus shipping. Fight! Okay, we're dealing with a pick-a-palooza. And we have to determine the list price. And so this is important for a couple of reasons. One is that when you're including shipping in your list price, then you have to understand how much it's actually going to cost you to ship. Now, if you are using calculated, okay, fine. If, like some folks, apparently you can set up your own shipping flat rates, which I think maybe is an interesting concept right at the moment. And Justin Resells gets into that, I believe, because that's what he does. So he offers free shipping, generally speaking, from what I understand. And he has his own shipping categories. So that means he already knows what he's charging for shipping. If he's able to look at the item and when he's pricing it, say $6.99. So in that case, we look at this thing over here now and we say, well, at the most, I'm going to pay $11.15 for shipping. That, in turn, changes the list price to $35.10. Now, that ensures that you get the full retail value of your item, plus you get the full value of the cost to ship it. Right? So you're receiving from the individual the cost to ship it, right? So in a way, you're really not listing the item for its value. You're listing the item for its value plus what it's going to cost to ship, which can impact your tax amount on the item. And we'll see that as we go through here. I do apologize. I'm just really hacking here. So this will be cut and pasted together. So now we could take this 11.15 and say, well, what's the average? Because we could put $6.33 in there. Oops. Don't want to do that. Let's X out. We could put $6.33 in here, but inevitably, right, that's probably not going to be a good number for us. Why? Well, we have no idea where it's going to go. So if you're going to err, I suppose you err on the high side. Now, you could split the difference, right? And if you split the difference, you take 11.15 plus 6.33, 17.48 divided by 2 equals $8.74. So you could put $8.74 in there. Now what this does is it's a double-edged sword, really. And it all depends on what's the most kosher way to do it, if you want to use that term. But at 874, you're assuring you're going to capture at least, the bottom portion of the shipping in your list price. And it also means that, and you'll see this shortly, the handling amount that you will obtain diminishes because you're not using the highest rate for the highest shipping rate for calculating your list price. But it means that, if your item ships for, say, $9, you're only out that 26 cents, right? So it minimizes the potential extra cost associated with selling that item, right? That comes out of your bottom line. But let's say it's 11.15, right? Bear with me, please. I'm just a little under the weather. I had to go get a cough drop. So we're going to take the high number here initially, right, of 11.15. And we're going to put it in there as an assumption. So at least we have an idea of what the range of shipping is going to be. We're going to take the high side, and that number is going to give us our list price. That means we're getting the full retail that we want plus the amount we want for shipping. So the MSRP is really what you're going to determine based on your research, right? Because in a sense, you're the manufacturer of the item. You have costs of goods associated with it. You maybe didn't manufacture the item, but you did expend dollars to bring that item into your inventory, right? Whether it was $2 or $20, right? You paid money to bring that item into inventory. Now, in order to sell that item, you want to make a certain profit margin. And in order to make that certain profit margin, you have to establish the price you're willing to let it go for or to sell it for. And that is typically called the MSRP. Now, not everybody goes by the MSRP. Oftentimes that's a marketing tool to get people to feel like the MSRP is this, but we're offering it lower. Now, so I'm just using MSRP as what they're suggesting is the retail price, right? That's the price you ultimately want to get for the item. Nothing more. But you have to work in the shipping amount in order to both obtain the full amount that you believe the item has in terms of its value, what someone's willing to pay for it, and the amount to cover the cost of shipping anywhere USA. Now, I'm assuming this is shipping USA, right? You know, I don't think this is going international or anything like that. So I could be all wet. Of course, always comment below would be helpful. I mean, I'm just working this out for myself, and I'm interacting with you in this way through YouTube, right? So I'm just kind of talking out loud, thinking out loud, processing this whole empire building endeavor, you know, working it out with you in the moment. So at this point, we have a subtotal. And I will say this here, right now, is an assumption. This is the assumption because we haven't sold the item yet, right? So this number here is still kind of, we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's real or not. As we assume, and this is helpful, right, to have this little calculator so that if we do get an offer, we can look at it and say, okay, well, what if I get an offer, right? Then what? We know that it's still going to potentially cost $11.15 to ship it, but our price might be different, right? But so the tax now is on the $35.10, which is our item price plus the shipping. Why? I mean, honestly, that's a good question. Because we're including it in there, right? And it's the price. And it's not going to be any too much different when we go to the plus shipping side, because the plus shipping gets added to the list price, right? So I guess if we wanted to just compare, if I go over here and I put $11.15 in the plus shipping assumption, again, we have $35.10 because we've determined that our shipping is going to be $11.15 based on this number. So actually yeah. So this is our assumption. So we carry that assumption over. But this assumption doesn't set a price for us. Our MSRP is our MSRP, and it is also our list price. There's the big difference, right? But when the subtotal comes in, they both are $35.10, so they're both going to be taxed at this 7% amount. So in that case, if you sell it at your list price, which is the MSRP plus your max shipping, you're going to pay $2.46, or $2.46 is going to get added on to your total, and this total is the total that eBay collects fees for, right? So if we go across here, we see it's no different. They're going to collect fees on $37.56 because the total sale included these two items, right? The MSRP and the shipping, just in different ways. Now, where it gets interesting is when the actual amount shows up. So in this case, let's just walk it down. I have my cost of goods. It cost me a penny. I have zero cost associated with this, so I just put a penny in there. Now, my promoted listing is going to be 2% on the $37.56. My category sale is going to be $2.52 based on 0.067, right? That's if I would have gotten the full price and full shipping, which includes full shipping. So my total fees in that instance would be $3.27. No different over here, no different over here, right? So we can look at gross profit, which is my list, not my list price. It can't be my list price because my list price includes shipping. My MSRP price, however, is the price that I need to subtract my cost of goods from. If anyone, I guess I could be wrong, but there's no reason to include shipping out to the customer. I guess you could consider that a cost of goods sold. I've always thought of cost of goods sold as the actual cost to bring the item into inventory or to actually manufacture the item. Okay? So, again, comments below. Would love to hear your insight on that. Okay, so our net profit, which I have it in here as net profit, is going to be the gross profit right here, minus the fees, minus the shipping. Because we haven't taken the shipping out of there yet, right? Because it cost us to ship it because we said we were going to pay for it, right? So in that case, there's $9.51 of net profit. I guess we'll call it net sales. Because net sales is really the amount of revenue that was generated off of that item. We haven't gotten into, the bottom line net profit yet because we haven't factored in any numbers that are associated with actually running your business, like buying equipment or buying supplies or your time, or if you maybe you do rent a warehouse. If that's an expense that you have associated with your business, we're not calculating that into the cost of goods because it's not a cost of goods, right? a cost of goods is, did you buy raw materials to make the unit, and how much did those cost? It doesn't account for the equipment that you purchased that depreciates over time. That gets worked out into the net profits. So this is net sales, right? This is net sales. This would be a revenue on the top end, just below cost of goods. Then when you get down to taking out insurance or fees or those types of things, although some of those fees are taken out here, but you could have a fee associated, say, with a buyer's club. A buyer's club fee is not figured in to this net sales. So in that case, we're left with a net sales of $9.51. It seems off for some reason, and you know, especially compared to what we actually did. That's because we put this I think they're trying to kill me for sharing this information. And then he swallows and chokes on his cough drop. Someone's trying to tell me quit talking. The reason that this doesn't look quite right is because when we inflate, well, we don't inflate it, but when we use the highest number for the shipping, well, that increases our tax amount, which increases our total, which increases our fees. Now, if we go in here and we just keep our list price as it is, and our shipping cost come in at at 7.62, that changes things because our list price remains the same, but our shipping actually went down. So we're dealing with budget v actual, right? So we budgeted for $11.15 for shipping on this item. The actual amount it cost for us to ship this was $7.92, right? Our list price doesn't change, our subtotal doesn't change. Our tax actually doesn't even change, right? Because we're not being taxed on $23.95 plus $7.92. We're only being taxed on what we received, which is $35.10. So we're being taxed at the higher rate, right? Because here, I'll do it real. All right. Now that drops the price to $27.18, and we would only pay $1.90 in tax. So you'll see that, okay, we're realizing some dollars in there if we get our actual list price. So I'm going to change that back. I hope that makes sense, okay? If it makes sense, like and subscribe and get a notification there. If it doesn't make sense, just like it anyway and write a comment below and let me know what is wrong with all this. When we calculate the actual shipping right here, you'll see that we get something showing up down here. I've termed it handling, right? Because there's a difference between what we collected, $35.10, and the actual cost of shipping. And that is the difference between $11.15 and $7.92. That handling amount goes back to us over here in the amount of $3.23. Now our net sales was $12.74. but we're going to adjust our net and recoup the handling and throw it back in here. So our adjusted net increases to $15.97. So at the end of the day, we're effectively realizing a little bit of money for handling this stuff. Okay. Now, if in this particular case we're going to go down to the actual, and this could be actual too, it's an assumed actual based on the fact that you got your list price out of it. And this is where in this column we see the error of my ways, because I certainly didn't know about this when I listed this item. Had I known about that and had this spreadsheet set up, I certainly would have priced my item differently and listed it differently as well. But because I got an offer for 20, I had to determine whether or not I wanted to take that. Now, having this information, I don't know, this isn't the same item, because I can't find that anywhere. But if I take this, I mean, I literally could have lost my shirt on this item, because I would have had to pay out more in shipping than I was actually going to make on the item by 80 cents. I would have been negative, oops, not $11.95, $11.15. I still would have made money. So I was looking at the wrong number. I just wouldn't have had any handling in there, right? But since I did sell it for, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here and say, hey, this is what my shipping actually was, so that I'm trying to create this so that it will pull directly from my other tabs in here for future reference. But my tax was $1.40. So my sale price was $20. I accepted $20. I mean, look at the difference. That's what, $15.10. I mean, I really did, did it wrong. But it was only my second item, right? So I'm learning, and I'm just trying to walk through this. So you can see I'm getting some handling money back into my bottom line. So in this particular case, even though my net sales, like, we can go look at that. Let's see, where was that? Order earnings, $10.25. So that matches up, generally speaking. I mean, I'm off by 5 cents, so I don't know exactly what these percentages are here and how they're being calculated, which is what I'm after, right? I would love to just see an itemized detail of, how it all broke out. But it should be that simple. It's not that complicated, right? I mean, certainly not for a huge, corporation like eBay. I mean, they certainly can provide that information. I mean, my goodness, there isn't any reason they can't provide it, so that we can do these types of things, these type of spreadsheets. Which, by the way, I want to take this spreadsheet and show you how it develops over time in my eBay empire building endeavor. Okay. So you can see that $10.20 still has the difference between $11.15 and $7.92, and it gets stuck back in here, and we call it handling, right? And so my actual net sales is $13.43. So in some way, we do avoid tax when we do that. Okay. Now, over to versus plus shipping. Can you make more money, bottom line, by doing it this way? And I think we're going to find out that yes, you can. And the question then becomes is it worth it? Is it worth it? And will your sales be impacted? And some people say maybe, some people say yes, some people say no. But again, our MSRP over here is going to be our list price. Why? Because we've determined that the price that the manufacturer sets as its recommended price, retail, is the price that you're setting as the manufacturer or the owner of that item and putting it out into the market. This is what you're going to put the item out in the market at, right? This is the price. So the MSRP and the list price are effectively identical. They are the same, right? The shipping, however, still needs to be assumed based on this information here. So again, you have some options. You know, you want to go with the average? Do you want to go with what? But I guess, you know, as an assumption, I'm going to err on the side of the high end because I know anything lower than that is going to, at least over here in terms of free shipping, give me an extra amount on the bottom line called handling. But over here on plus shipping, that's not going to be the case, right? Because we're not paying for shipping. The buyer is paying for the shipping. So the only benefit is that the buyer pays what the buyer pays, and well, that's not really a benefit. I mean, it is if they live close to you, they're going to get the lowest rate. If they live farther away from you, they're going to get the highest rate. Right? So we see here that our subtotal is $35.10. And again, our tax is the same as it was over here, and our total is the same. So in terms of fees, $37.56 is going to be what eBay is going to collect in fees. Now, the thing is, as I see it, everything is the same until you get down to net profit. So when you get down to net profit, you're going to take the $23.94 gross profit minus your fees. Oh, I need to take my cost of goods out too. And I arrive at $20.66. I'm not taking shipping out of there because I'm not paying for shipping. It's not a cost to me. Okay? Now, what happens if my shipping is at $7.92 as it was? Okay, well, that changes things, right? And on a couple of different levels. But what it does not do is it doesn't give us any handling because the assumption has to change right along with it. Because if I was normally asking $11.15 over here, and I assumed that going into it, and if I only had to pay $7.92, remember I get that $3.23 difference built back in over here. Over here, I don't get that luxury. Why? Because the buyer is paying for it. The buyer always pays for this, and it's at no cost to me. The only cost shows up in my subtotal, and that subtotal is the taxable amount. So in this case, you can see the difference here now is $2.32 versus $2.46. So I'm actually paying a little less tax when I realize what the shipping rate is going to be. It just doesn't, it just really doesn't matter, right? Only if my shipping rate in the assumed scenario was 15 do I show it as this, but since it's just an assumption, the moment I change it, it adjusts. And it has to, because I'm not making money on the shipping and calling it handling. So now all of a sudden, our total is less, and it's $34.10. So now we take our cost of goods, which is the same, and it doesn't impact anything there. Now our promotion changes from 68 cents, or from 75 cents to 68 cents. So it's a little less, 7 cents. Okay. We go from 252 in the category to 228. And so the different total here is $3.27 here versus total fees of $2.97. It's starting to add up. So in terms of our gross profit, however, right, that's not different. So the gross profit is the same, because it's got to be based on the actual price of the item. Now in this case, what I should do is I should calculate it off of the MSRP, right? Because I should do the same thing over here, which I have done. It's got to be cost of goods against the MSRP, right? Whatever our MSRP is, we take the cost of goods out of there, not the list price, not the list price. Okay, so now with our net profit, let's just make sure this is correct. We take our gross profit minus our fees, and we don't have to take shipping out. Why? Because the customer is paying for that. The only fees associated with shipping that we're being charged are the additional taxes, which increase, and we're not even paying that. But that amount is reflected in the total, which then comes out in our fees. So $20.96 of net sales versus $12.74. Wow, that seems crazy, but let's take $12.74 and let's do a quick, we'll take $12.74 and we'll put the shipping back in there as if the buyer was paying shipping, and we're at $20.66. So we're not too far off, in that sense, but it's not exact, because it would actually be this over here, if you were actually doing it that way, because you would be listing it at $23.95 plus shipping. So now here's what ends up happening. The discrepancy looks large right here, right? $20.96 versus $12.74. And it is. But what ends up happening is we get zero handling no matter how you slice it over here in the plus shipping, right? But over here we do get handling, because that's built into our assumption. If we're charging ourselves the full amount of shipping, right, we're going to realize the difference between what it actually cost and what we assumed it would cost, just so we could make our handling. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. Okay, so down below, if you can tell me if this is right or wrong, or if this is right or wrong, or does it really matter? And if it doesn't matter, then I guess you have to determine whether or not you want to make more by offering it as the list price plus shipping and handling versus the item including free shipping. So the difference after we calculate back in our handling of $3.23 here in this comparative assumption of these two items, same shipping, right? Different taxes, same cost of goods, same amount of fees percentage, but different totals. We come to $15.97 for an adjusted net over here in free shipping, and our adjusted net includes $0, so we really didn't adjust it, for $20.96. So we'll do the difference between the adjusted here and the adjusted here, and we come up with an adjusted difference of $4.99. So we'll just do this real quick and make it really big. Too big. And so I think we'll do this as well. I mean, we have a winner, purely based on the numbers, right? Just the numbers alone. Now, this does not take into account at all the additional work required to do it this way. That is what I don't know. And, I'm just looking at this. I know yesterday when I listed some things, I was, trying to figure out whether or not I should list them plus shipping versus free shipping. And it certainly was easier for me to just list them free shipping. Now that I have this calculator, I should be able to do a head-to-head comparison on whether or not I should offer free shipping or whether I should offer plus shipping. And maybe it varies on the types of items. I don't know. Look, whether it's helpful or not, maybe it's interesting. So only for the factor that it's interesting, like, subscribe, love it, really. And, come along for the ride as we, do some empire building here on eBay. So in any event, this is building towards my Gigtirement. And, I want to get it right. I don't want the hassle of, the long arm of the law. Not saying that that's going to happen, but, what are my taxes? What are the taxes? How did this number get determined? Right now, North Dakota is 5%. And if you're charging it based on the nexus of my location, right? I'm in North Dakota. So state tax in North Dakota is 5%. Why is it calculating on 7%? It's not accounting for the city of Wahpeton taxes. So are they collecting for the city of Wahpeton too and remitting that to the state like I have to do in my sales and use report every year, right? I have to take the taxes and invoice them to my customers if it's warranted, and I need to hold those taxes and then submit them along with a report to the state of North Dakota at the beginning of each year, right? To say, hey, I collected these taxes and here they are, and it goes to this city and this city and this city at these amounts, goes to this county and this county for these amounts, and then here's the state and their amount, and we're good for another year. So I'm kind of curious about what's actually taking place here. It's not, look, right? I'm here, I'm able to put a percentage associated with a total sale amount, or a list price, or a total including tax, but eBay can't do that. They don't have an accountant or two that can or a web developer who can work together to present to me a really transparent way of doing business and understanding how they're doing business. Because in essence, I'm a heavy lifter. Not right now, maybe. Maybe I'm just a eensy beensy lifter. But perhaps, one day I will be a heavy lifter, a heavy hitter. Maybe I'll be the anchor man, right? But we are talking about building empires, after all, in our Gigtirement. All right, till next time. Bye.